Hi team, my name is Clay Johnson and I'm from Colie Sales, and I'm going to talk to you today about how to rig your Opti. This is a perfect video for people that are pulling their Opti out of their garage, haven't touched it since the end of last season, and might want to refresh some of the things about the boat. The first thing I look at is the boat itself. I want to make sure there's no damage or anything that needs taken care of. Any duct tape that's on the boat is a clear sign that something happened and maybe should be looked at. Go around the rail, make sure there aren't any cracks, no holes, nothing to be worried about. Let's look at the blades. This is an Opti rudder. The most common thing to look for on an Opti rudder is the universal. This part here, the rubber piece that connects the tiller extension to the tiller. You want to make sure this is in one piece and isn't cracked or going to break. Make sure the tiller is locked in and these two bolts are snugged up, and make sure the rudder retaining clip is going to help the rudder stay on the boat. Here I'm putting the rudder with the two pintles into the gudgeons of the back of the boat, and you can hear it clip on and the rudder doesn't come up. If the rudder comes up and out, you need to bend this clip more so that it prevents it from coming out. Let's look at the Daggerboard. This is an Opti Daggerboard. Same thing, make sure that there aren't any cracks or issues. Sometimes these wooden toppers can break. The Daggerboard should have a rudder tie-in line. This is so that if you flip over, the Daggerboard doesn't come out and float away. The tie-in line goes to this eye strap at the front of your Daggerboard well. That's a great place to tie it in. So this board looks great. Good condition. If your boat has been made after 1995, you'll have exposed airbags. Before 1995, they had tanks that covered the front two airbags. But every Opti has 3 airbags. You want to make sure that they're inflated and that they hold air so that, again, your boat will float. Every Opti needs 2 bailers. Plastic bailers help to scoop the water out. We like to drill a small hole in the side of the boat and attach them with bungee so that they are within reach and don't go anywhere. And then when you're storing the boat, you can tuck them up here and out of the way. This boat has a prattle, which is a one-armed, one-handed paddle, so that on the light air days or maybe just coming into the marina where you're trying to get to the dock, you can take this in the water and paddle your way in safely. Inside the Daggerboard well, there are 4 rubber stoppers, 2 at the front and 2 at the bottom, on the top and the bottom. You want to make sure that these are in place and not punched through. These just get attached with some super glue. This is the Opti Daggerboard bungee system, and this goes on top of the board to hold it down when you're going upwind, and behind the board when you're sailing downwind. You want to make sure this is in one piece. Your hiking straps. These straps look good, they're not worn, tied into the back of the boat, not going in the water. Every boat needs a bow line. The bow line needs to be a minimum of 30 feet and should have a bowline in the end of it. It's nice and helpful for a coach to tie a big bowline, which is easy to grab onto and loop through to string up Optis. When you tie your bow line on, don't tie to this hole right here, because then all of the pressure is on the thwart, this itself, and it's going to rip it out. Instead, we go through this, which is called a painter's loop, and we tie it to the mast step. This is the solid place of your boat to tow off of. Now let's talk about your sail. There are 3 spars: the mast, the boom, and the sprit. You want to make sure that all fittings are in place, nothing's coming off. The sprit has a rubber piece down here that's meant to go on the lower side so that it prevents wear against the mast. When you go to tie your sail on, if you're going to take one thing out of what I say right here, this is the most important thing. Top 2 sail ties are the most important. You want the top one to be parallel to the top of the mast. You go around twice, you tie it tightly with a square knot, and it's parallel. The diagonal one goes around once and it holds it parallel. If the diagonal one's too loose, the top of the sail can go over the top of the mast. If it's too tight, it will pull down and create an awkward bubble in the top of your sail. So the diagonal one just holds the top one parallel. If those sail ties are correct, everything else should fall in place nicely. Another way you can check is, if those are correct, this measurement band should fall somewhere within this strip here, this range. See how it's nice in the middle there? So then there are 6 sail ties. These are thinner ties that go down the mast, and 6 that go down the boom. They all go around twice, and they get tied with a square knot. On the mast, you want to be able to see about a credit card width between the sail and the mast. Along the boom, you want about a pinky's width, so you can get your pinky in there. And the reason is, when you tack, you want the sail to flop from side to side more easily. In the front, it's just rotating a little bit. 2 common things to look at when you pull out your sail for the first time of the season are the window and the battens. The window is this vinyl material here. and it should be free of cracks or rips or anything, or it shouldn't have any tape on it that can prevent viewing while in the water. So if you have that, it's easy enough for us to replace. You can bring it in and we can install a new window. The second thing to check are battens. There are 2 battens on an Opti sail. They're made of fiberglass. They should not be broken. Oftentimes Opti sails get folded together and rolled, and if rolled incorrectly, the batten can actually be rolled on itself and break. But you want these 2 to be intact. If they're broken, you can bring your sail in and we can take it out and install a new one and sew it in place. There are some controls. This is your sprit. The finger line down to a block, and then down here to a T-handle. This T-handle is important to have here so that you can tighten it or loosen your sprit. If the T-handle goes below the thwart here, you can put a stopper knot and raise it to be a little more accessible. The Vang is this control here. Again, make sure it's in one piece. The cleat looks like it's on, holds the boom down. The Outhaul is the control that controls the foot of the sail. This looks good. It stops here. It goes to the grommet. It goes back to the boom, and then it goes down to this cleat right here. The main sheet, an Opti main sheet, should be about 24 feet long, and it should have a trigger snap that easily attaches to this bridle ring right here. You don't want anything that can get hooked on a life jacket or on clothing and potentially snag your sailor. You should tie a stopper knot at the end of your main sheet so that if you drop the main sheet, it doesn't go through the block. Your bridle should be as tight as you can get it, because inevitably once you start pulling on this, the bridle comes off the boom. There's a class rule that says this can be no more than 100 millimeters off the boom. So what some people do is they take another sail tie and they tie this ring up to hold it tighter. Another benefit from keeping this a little tighter is, should the bridle ever break, your ring is still attached to the boom and you can finish the race and keep sailing. One important thing to talk about is safety with your mast. What would happen is, if you're sailing along and you flip over, your mast can come up, turn sideways, and crack this thwart. To stop that, they came up with a mast tie-in system, and it was just a line that went over the cleat, tied off with a square knot, and it kept your mast in should you flip. But the problem with this is, if the boom goes around the mast a few times, or if kids rig in the morning, they go to lunch, they play games, whatever, and the boom swings around and around in shifty wind, this rope can rip out of the thwart and cause fiberglass damage. They came up with a mast clamp, which this is going to go underneath the mast and as high up as it can, but what happens is it goes around, it clips on there, and then it pulls tight. And because it's so high, you won't be able to lift the mast up, but the boom can still spin around freely without ripping it out. I think this is a must-have for all Opti sailors to prevent any fiberglass damage to their boat. I hope you enjoyed and learned something from this video.